So today is this unique day. It's both Memorial Day and the day of a baptism and Holy Trinity Sunday all mixed into one. It's also the day we read John 3:16, which is frankly one of the biggest, most beloved texts out there. But I want to spend some time talking about Memorial Day and Christian life. Why? Because I get this question all the time of, Pastor, why do you stop and note Memorial Day? Why do you do this? It's not a Christian holiday. It doesn't celebrate a Christian thing. It's remembering those who've died in service to a particular country. Why take a moment to note this? And that's a good question. Let me explain why. First thing, we have to understand what Memorial Day is and what it is not. What Memorial Day is really a funeral. It's not 4th of July. I think the number one thing that gets people mixed up is that they get 4th of July and Memorial Day mixed, and they shouldn't be, and they never were meant to be. 4th of July is where you go celebrate with fireworks and have fun and express your joy and happiness of the freedoms we have and the sacrifices made for them. That's okay. Memorial Day is where you remember those who died, those who made the ultimate sacrifice for the freedoms and the community we live in. It's very different. It's not about the people currently serving. That's Armed Forces Day or 4th of July. It's not about the freedoms that they've won. That's 4th of July. It's about remembering that every soldier dies once, because every person dies once. It's about remembering those who are willing to do that because they wanted to make the world a better place. Now, people will push back and say, well, then why aren't you remembering firefighters? Why aren't you remembering police officers? Why aren't you remembering first responders? And I'd say, seriously, if you want to remember police officers today, go for it. I don't think there's a person out there who's going to be mad at you. I don't know a person who has served that would be upset if you decided you're going to remember a fallen firefighter today. You have grief in your heart for someone who died in the line of service, whatever service that might be, of their country, their community, their God. And you need time to mourn, time to remember, time to let their life inspire you. That is what Memorial Day is for. What people do not get is the sacrifice not just of those soldiers, but of their families. I grew up as a child of a military man who served for 20 years. I was lucky, as was he, that there were no major wars during those 20 years. He only got deployed 3 times to areas, and luckily enough, never to a place where he was in any real danger. And only once that I was old enough to remember. But there are sacrifices made by the families too. See, the other thing we need to remember is that, on Memorial Day, we remember those who gave the ultimate sacrifice in a moment in time. That is not meant to just be a funeral, not meant to just be a moment of grief, not meant to just be something we note once a year and walk away from. It is meant to be something that should inspire us. It is meant to inspire us to ask ourselves a question. And that question is simply this: what is it that you're willing to die for that is greater than you? Death sometimes comes in a moment, but sometimes comes in a million moments, and always comes eventually. See, this is one of the fundamental parts of what Christianity asks, is to look at everyone and say, you do not know how much time you have on this world. God is not here to condemn the world, but to save the world. And he's already done that. He died on the cross. He resurrected. He has saved the world. He has dealt with the afterlife. So the question for us as Christians isn't the question of afterlife. The question for us as Christians is, what do we do now? So the whole season of Pentecost is about. It's why it's our longest season, because it's our biggest question. Our biggest question is not, are you saved? Our biggest question is, so you're saved, what are you doing next? Memorial Day helps remind us that there are those who looked at the world and said, I am willing to die to make it a better place, to make it a more just place, to make it a freer place. We remember those who died in a moment today, but we should also honor those who died in a million moments, who lost their minds, parts of their bodies, or their childhoods, going out there and keeping us all free, giving us the ability to pursue happiness, giving us the ability to live in a place where we can meet on a morning like today as a community who loves and cares for each other, but also a place that if you didn't want to, no one made you show up either, right? And yeah, that goes beyond just the military. You can come up with a whole line of folks. People will say to me, don't you know that the military's done bad things? Yes, I know about My Lai. Yes, I know about Wounded Knee. Yes, I know about Dresden. I know these things. So does every soldier in the military. Because the military always wants to be better than their worst moments. But what I say to people who say that to me is, do you know that it was the first branch of the government to integrate? Do you know that was so controversial when Harry Truman fully integrated the military that the second most successful third-party candidate went ahead and launched a third party trying to de-integrate the military? It almost cost a presidential election. Do you know that that's been true of the military at every step of all civil rights issues? They got there before any other branch of government. They've always been the most diverse branch of government. They continue to be the most diverse branch of government by any stretch of diversity. Is the military perfect? Absolutely not. But no one is anyways. Are there bad apples? There are everywhere. You can find pastors that are bad apples. I can show them online to you. Right? Here's the thing. It doesn't persuade us away from the question. In fact, if anything, it adds to the question. You are imperfect. I am imperfect. I make mistakes. You make mistakes. We all try to not make mistakes, but we're human. But the biggest mistake we can do is to believe that we live our life without dying to something. Because we all die to something eventually. Even if that something is in action. See, we as Christians are called to make the world a better place. And while the definition of that will be as diverse as the Christian community that one is speaking to, it doesn't take away from that call of Pentecost, that call of the Spirit. See, early Christians, and I love to tell the confirmants this, if you go look at early Christian art, at the bottom of every depiction of the crucifixion will be the pirate skull and crossbones. You all know the pirate skull and crossbones, right? Who knows what a pirate flag looks like? Right? Do you know why that's there? It's because for early Christians, one of the most fundamental things they were told, one of the most fundamental beliefs they had was that one would die, your old Adam, and a new one would be reborn at baptism. And that life led to one of two places. You were either the skull and crossbones of the dead Adam, because you never did anything with your life worth doing, or you died on the cross of Christ with him because you gave your life in service of something greater, something noble, something godly. So I pose you the question that the gospel proposes to you, the Memorial Day proposes to you, that Christianity proposes to you. The question I want you to walk with this week is simple. At baptism, you said you would walk with the community of faith. You would learn the 10 Commandments, participate in communion, grow and be out in the community in search of justice, of love, of truth, of compassion. Where is and how is that place that God is calling to you? In other words, in what ways is God calling you to die for something larger than you? Amen.